All right, guys. Tonight's going to be a little bit different than usual. I actually managed to get out and go fishing for a few hours yesterday with a friend and caught a few fish. So I wanted to do a quick kind of video today. I was going to do it outside. We've had some weird weather. And then I got thinking, well, not everybody has outside hoses to work with. So what do you do if you go fishing and don't have a fish cleaning station at the lake, or don't have a garage or something to work in? I thought that, hey, I'll show a couple of quick easy options to do stuff like this indoors. It doesn't have to be messy. Some stuff you can take outside, some stuff you can do inside. So we'll be talking about all of that. But for starters, here's probably the easiest thing that I can recommend. Okay. Always keep a big cardboard box left over laying around. Keep a couple of them. If you plan on fishing or cleaning fish down the road, keep a big box that you can open up, and then, you don't have to use a quick clamp. I'm just using a quick clamp to hold it in place for the video. You can also use a old towel if you have an old towel that you don't use, and that helps, to keep the mess. But I thought we'd get started here. Very simple, just a couple of tools. We've got a good set of pruning shears, and this one, the biggest key is having a set of shears that cuts all the way through. If you get one that's got a flat base there, you'll end up crushing parts of the fish that instead of cutting through it. So it's really important to get a good set. These were Stanley Fat Max shears that I got 20 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't think they make these anymore. I've looked for them because I love them. Absolutely love these. And I've just never found anything else that works as good as these. Second thing you really need is a decent fillet knife. And these come in different shapes and sizes. This is my standard fillet knife that I usually use. This is a new one. I thought I'd give it a try, even though I'm not actually going to be filleting anything today. I just thought I'd check it out. A lot of times, you can do most of the work with a boning knife, and you can see the difference there. The thing with fillet knives is they're generally more flexible, so they bend. And then this is more of a stiff. It still has a little bit of give, but your boning knives are almost always going to be very, very stiff. So these are the three knives you would generally use, and most of the time a boning knife is going to be more than you need. There's a trick with the way I work with fish. I hate seeing anything go to waste. I hate, if I'm going to fillet something, I'm going to save what's left of the bones for a stock down the road for fish stock. So I really, with my limited steps though, I really just like to gut it, cut off the fins, put it on a baking sheet, and bake it for half hour, 45 minutes in the oven. Very, very simple and easy to do. But these are kind of the tools that we're just going to play around with today. We'll see how that new fillet knife works. A little bit long for what I would normally do, but we'll see. We'll give it a try. So would you guys like to see what we're working with today? and I'll have to take a break here and take a couple of pictures. But here is what we are working with. We've got one big channel cat. And then one decent sized drum here. I'm going to grab the scale really quick and see what we're working with here. I didn't weigh these yesterday. I'm guessing maybe 5 to 6 pounds. And maybe 1.5 pounds, but let me grab my scale and find out. All right, little guy. Yep, 4.8, so right around 5 pounds. No, 4 and 3/4 there. And our little drum. If you've never had drum before, to me it's very similar to, because there are saltwater versions of drum and freshwater versions of drum. Oops. It's one of my favorite fish. Catfish and then drum. Very, very good. To me, if you cook it right, it is very similar to sea bass or cod. I don't know what's going on with this stupid. Okay. Yeah. 1.4 pounds. So 1.25 pounds. Not bad. We are going to start off with our catfish here. One thing I will say is, you can get some cutting gloves. These guys do get really slippery and slick, and it does help with a lot of it. But what I do, I always start off with getting rid of the fins. And I've got a little trash can down here to throw everything into. But I think catfish are actually the easiest to process, where a lot of people would just fillet them and then throw everything else away. Like I said, I think you lose so much meat, especially on a bigger catfish like this. There's a lot of meat up in the cheeks and in the head. So now, if you've never caught catfish before, you need to know that their fins have basically hypodermic needles with poison. They're not. The smaller ones are worse than the bigger ones, but it is not a pleasant experience if you poke yourself with their 3 fins there. Okay. It's pretty easy. Some people like to, if they're going to fry it, some people like to keep the fins on and say that it's like potato chips. Maybe on a smaller fish, like bluegill or something, but not really my thing. Now, here's where things get interesting. So what I like to do is come in and cut through the jaw. Like so. There's a big plate here that we can cut through. Like that. And then this kind of opens up for getting the gills and everything else out. Oh, he's got a lot of stuff in him, so we're going to rinse. Give him a quick rinse in the sink here. All right. So again, we want to get in here and kind of cut this open so we can get the jaw kind of opened up. And then we can come in and cut the gills out. And again, a lot of this stuff can be done with the shears instead of the knife. So if you're scared about cutting yourself, it's always it's one of the reasons why I like this, because when I was teaching my younger kids how to clean fish, this was one of the main ways. And here's where having a towel comes in handy. You know, it gets slippery and slimy, so if you have an old microfiber towel laying around, just kind of do that. But just going in there and getting the gills out. Now, there's a big bone here and a big bone back here. And there, you can sometimes get through it with a regular knife, but I don't like dulling my knives. So I'm just going to go straight through with the pruning shears. And make sure we get through. Still got a couple of gill plates in here. Let's get rid of those. Okay. Now we're going to give it another quick rinse here while we're at it. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that's, you know, that's kind of what we're going for. Get the gill plates out of there as good as you can. All right, now we're pretty much through the plate. There we go. Yep. Okay, so here's where it gets kind of tricky. That's where the fillet knives come in. So you want to come down and make kind of a V incision back here. Okay. Get rid of that. And then we can come in with our fillet knife and just go beneath the skin. You don't want to go too far into the gut cavity. And then when we get back here, we've got this other plate that, again, you know, a boning knife would probably go through it. I don't want to ruin my knives. So cut through it first like that. Come back in with the fillet knife. Now this is going to be a snap, crackle, and pop kind of thing because you've got the collarbone here that needs to open up. Okay. Well, so here was a pretty good sized female. We've got her eggs, kidneys, liver, intestines, stomach, lungs, not lungs, but bladder, air bladder, and stomach. She was getting ready for spawn for sure. So now what we want to do is just come in here and yank all of this out. Honestly, if you have one of the like chainmail gloves, doing stuff like this works a lot better. But now we can just kind of slide that out. Okay. And so that's pretty much it for what I do. You know, I'll give her a quick rinse out in the sink, and we're gonna do the drum, and then we'll cut up the she has some interesting stuff in her. Looks like crawdads. Might have even been a baby bird or two in there. Just never know what you're gonna pull out of them. It's like come mulberry season, you know, you're gonna have nothing but a stomach full of mulberries. And catfish are interesting. I mean, they'll eat moss and weeds and corn. Yeah, like I said, this is so much easier to do outside with the garden hose. You know, you're not making a mess inside the house, but if you garden, this is great compost. Okay. All right. Well, so I've kind of got plans for this big girl. I want to work on some like fish sticks and nugget recipes. So I'll be doing her in a couple different ways here. But for one, I just want to kind of split it into sections here. And, you know, there's so much meat right here. That's enough for at least 2 people. And then I want to use the rest of this for other things. So we're just going to kind of come down and go right through that. And, you know, this is such a perfect size catfish. You know, 5 pounds. I wouldn't do too much bigger than these, but, you know, you can cut these into a decent size steak. But we're going to leave it just like that. And one thing that a lot of people miss, there's a lot of meat up here on the head. And there's no reason to just, you know, fillet it. I understand why people do it, but to me, it's a waste. But that's all there is to the catfish. She's going to go in the fridge for a little bit. Get my gloves off here for a second before we start the drum. Now, the drum I'm actually going to have to take outside. Just because of the fact that I've got to scale the drum. But I'll show you guys how to scale them before I take it out and do it outside. And I forgot to take a picture for my mom. Oops. Let me do that real quick before I forget. Okay. So this goes in the fridge to dry off. It'll then go into the freezer before I actually vacuum seal it. Oh, letting that skin dry out in the fridge helps a lot. You know, it's not as slimy as if you just try to cook it right away.